about setting up communications links, military to military.
Yes.
Not just dealing with potentially Taiwan, but more recently the South China Sea.
Yes, indeed.
How worried are we about that, and how well are these mechanisms beginning to work? Have we actually created something of a hotline and a confidence-building measure, or is it not quite in place yet?
It's in place, Richard, but I would say there's more work to be done to cement it and make sure that it's sustainable. But the military-to-military communications are back on at very high levels, all the way up to the Secretary of Defense and certainly down to the Indo-Pacific commander and even some of his components. That's a good thing, because when you have two big militaries like that and they're operating in some common areas, you want to make sure you can pick up the phone and reduce the risk of miscalculation. But, and it's a big but, you can't take it for granted. And unfortunately, we saw in the past when Speaker Pelosi went to Taiwan, they shut off the comms link. So it's fragile. And what we want to do is sort of take the fragility out of that and make sure that these military communications can continue and be sustained and survive. In fact, the whole reason you have them is to prevent them being shut down in a case where things are tense.
Switch subjects a little bit. We've got now large amounts of aid going to Ukraine again. That's going to start up. To what extent are we prepared to talk to the Ukraine government about how they use this? In particular, are we going to support them and allow this aid to be used for resuming a quote-unquote counteroffensive? Or are we going to say, look, guys, let's be realistic, use this to play defense, let's frustrate this Russian advance? To what extent, if you will, is this aid going to be conditioned?
It really isn't, Richard. The only thing that we have made clear to the Ukrainians, and they continue to abide by it, is we don't want to see any U.S. weapons used to attack Russia proper into Russian territory. And they understand our concerns about that. So we don't enable, we don't encourage that. That said, we don't dictate to them on the battlefield how and where they use the munitions and the weapons we give them. If they want to use them to go on the offense and push Russian forces back, well, that's their choice, and we respect that. If they want to use it in defense, they can do that too. In fact, some of the systems we give them are really more designed for defensive versus offensive operations. But they have every right, and we would expect that they would want to take advantage of the new weapons they're getting to push Russian forces back. As you and I are talking, they are continuing, the Russians, continuing to make progress out of that Bakhmut axis, coming sort of east to west. Now, it's slow progress, but they're pushing back on the Ukrainian lines, the first, the second, and even pushing on the third. And that's dangerous. So these weapons are going to hopefully get on the battlefield very, very soon. And we would certainly expect that the Ukrainians would use them to go back on the offense.
There's not a lot of time for victory laps when you're president of the United States, but it was less than a week ago that we got an agreement on passing Ukrainian funding. It was also just a week ago that the Israelis responded with attacks in Iran, and 2 weeks prior, where you all were dealing with the Iranian attacks into Israel. Very difficult things across the board for the president to handle. Where, at this point, how do you feel about the impact that U.S. leadership have? These things are all reinforcing, right? I mean, the conversation that Tony Blinken had with Xi would have been very different if the United States had not just delivered funding to Ukraine. The conversation would be different if we had not, with Israel and Iran, that had not reached some, equilibrium is probably too strong of a word, but at least at least the situation has not gotten worse there. How do you feel about the state of that kind of balance right now?
Well, we're obviously
a lot of continents involved, Admiral.
We're certainly grateful that we got the supplemental funding passed, and now we can start to support Israel and Ukraine. And actually, some of that money goes to our Indo-Pacific challenges. Right. So that's a good thing. And it shows, even though it took us too long to get here, it does show that eventually, American leadership will step up and support allies and partners. And it's really important. And you'll notice the reaction that has happened from certain parts of the world. When this national security supplemental was passed, the Russian reaction was, well, the United States is heading into another quagmire, right? They reacted sharply to the fact that we're now going to be supporting Ukraine again. Look at the reactions coming out of Israel now that they know that aid's going to be coming. You can tell how much American leadership matters by the way both our friends and our not so close friends are reacting to the supplemental package and to the decisions that the president has made. He believes, and I believe recent history certainly bears him out, that American leadership does matter on the world stage. People do look for it, and they look for cracks in it, like they did when we couldn't get this supplemental, and the criticism that came of that. They also understand that the president sees American leadership as a collaborative effort. It's not just the United States alone. It's the United States with allies and partners, and no other nation enjoys the network of allies and partners that the United States has, and he's put a lot of effort into revitalizing them. Just a couple of weeks ago, the state visit with the Prime Minister of Japan, Prime Minister Kishida, which included also the President Marcos of the Philippines. We're now working at trilateral cooperation between two of our biggest allies in the Pacific. So all of that, I think, is the context for what's happened this week that shows we do support allies and friends. It does matter, and people are paying attention.
Admiral, we've been talking this morning about these negotiations brokered by Qatar to get the hostages, the Israeli hostages, home from Gaza. Obviously, Hamas is not a reasonable partner with which to negotiate. Do you believe those will bear any fruit at all? I mean, Hamas keeps moving the goalposts and changing what it wants in return for those 130-some hostages to come back. What is the progress there, if any?
We sure hope so, Willie. I wish I had progress to tell you about this morning. I don't. There was a very good proposal laid at the feet of Hamas and just a couple of weeks ago after Bill Burns, our CIA director, negotiated it in Cairo. They have not taken that proposal up. In fact, they've indicated that they won't. Now, yesterday they came out and said they would only release the hostages if there was a independent state for the Palestinian people. Look, there's not going to be an independent Palestinian state with Hamas in control of Gaza. Can't happen. If they really cared about the Palestinian people, if they really cared about an independent state, they'd lay down their arms, they'd step aside, they release those hostages, and let us get on with the business of working with Israel and the Palestinian Authority for a revitalized Palestinian Authority that could actually manage and meet the aspirations of the Palestinian people. As for the hostages, we're continuing to work this every day, even though there is a proposal that doesn't appear to be moved on right now by Hamas. That doesn't mean we're giving up on it. You probably saw the president had a chance to meet with young Abigail Ivan in the Oval Office and her family. I can assure you that he's looking out for the hostages and their families every single day, and so is the whole team. We're just not going to quit.
Admiral, what about the humanitarian crisis that continues inside of Gaza? Famine, overcrowding, a lack of food, a lack of supplies. Can you speak to the effort to get those supplies to the people who need them? Because we know so many of the supplies that are brought in to Gaza are intercepted by Hamas. What can you do to make that situation better for all those people suffering inside of Gaza?
Well, a couple of things. Number one, as you probably saw, I mean, and it's not the last conversation with Prime Minister Netanyahu, but the one before that, the president was very firm that he needed to see changes on the Israeli side about access to humanitarian assistance, or we were going to have to look at changes to our Gaza policy. And so, in response, the Israelis have opened up more crossings. They have increased the hours at which many of those crossings are open, and they have generally increased the number of trucks that have been getting in. In one day in particular, there was more than 300. There's been a couple of thousand over just the last week or two. That's good, not good enough. It's got to be sustained. We've got to see it increase even more. We also have to make sure that those aid workers feel safe on the ground distributing that assistance. And that includes up to North Gaza, where there's still quite a number of refugees that are in desperate need. We're also conducting airdrops. We continue to do that. That's not the best way to get volume in, but we're not getting rid of that as an option. And of course, even as you and I speak, Willie, the United States military is working to collect and assemble in the area off the coast of Gaza this temporary pier that can be used for maritime shipments of humanitarian assistance and getting that in. Now, we're still a couple of weeks away before that capability is going to be operational, but that will provide yet another avenue to get assistance in.
Admiral, I know you've got to run. Just quickly before we go, you've seen these protests on the campuses, some of them getting out of control. It has become gospel among some of those protesters, the pro-Palestinian protesters, that Israel is committing genocide and that the Biden administration is supporting a genocide in Gaza. Do you see any evidence of Israel committing genocide in Gaza?
Absolutely not. No, there's no evidence. The Israeli soldiers are not getting up getting out of Iraq, putting their boots on in the day and saying, hey, I'm going to go commit genocide. I'm going to go wantonly murder innocent Palestinians. Now, that said, there has been, and the president has talked about this, too many civilian casualties. The number needs to be 0. And there are too many people starving, too many people in need. And so we're going to continue to push Israel to do more, to alleviate the suffering of the Palestinian people, and to try to get a ceasefire in place so that we can get all those hostages out. And then after 6 weeks of a ceasefire, try to find an enduring way to end this conflict. The president's committed to that, but no evidence of genocide.